Good day there once again, viewers. Your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today, my friends, we're going to be having a chat about the Battlegrounds Gamescom case controversy that's sort of sparked up within the community as of late. Now, I know that I am fairly late to this party and, you know, a lot of the dust has settled when it comes to this issue, but at the end of the day, guys, this sort of topic, the idea of microtransactions in gaming, is something that has been taking the entire gaming community by storm and has really been changing the way that games are monetized for the long term, and Battlegrounds just serves to be another case in point to how the gaming industry is evolving, and therefore it is worth talking about. Now, for all of those who have been hiding under the radar and don't exactly know what we're talking about when I mention the Battlegrounds Gamescom Invitational cases, let's do a quick crash course on what's been going on with these things. Essentially, these are cases in Battlegrounds that give you cosmetic items like the regular cases have been doing, except these cases work very much like CSGO cases, in the sense that you can earn these cases through playing the game as per normal, as it has been up until this point. Now, once you acquire the case, you need a key to unlock it and gain the reward within that case. And this is where the microtransactions element of this whole thing comes into play. The keys to unlock the cases cost money, but once you open the case, you have a new cosmetic item to use in the game, or if you prefer, you can sell it for a handsome amount on the Steam marketplace. And trust me, guys, some of the rarest stuff appearing in these Gamescom Invitational cases is selling for quite a handsome amount indeed. The Steam marketplace has been exploding for Battlegrounds as of late. Now, I know what some of you are saying. Cammy, this isn't anything new. In fact, microtransactions in the form of RNG loot boxes have existed in many forms across many games before. Why are we talking about it here? Which is sort of the exact same question I was asking myself when this whole uproar began. Part of me just sat there thinking, fuck me, guys, why are we losing our shit here? Like, at the end of the day, this whole loot crate style of microtransaction isn't something new. We've seen it in games like CSGO, like Overwatch, even Call of Duty and Battlefield 1. These sorts of things are nothing new, so why are people getting up in arms about it? And if I'm being honest, I don't think it's anything to do with the game itself or the state that it is technically in right now. You know, at the end of the day, guys, Battlegrounds is a solid game as it is. You know, it gets the job done, it provides a unique experience, and it isn't technically unfinished. You know, it's not a full game right now, but it's a game that's in working condition. It's not broken. It still works and it still provides you with a positive experience. I know there are people out there having huge frame rate issues and having lagging out issues and all that jazz, but for the most part, with 500,000 concurrent players playing the game, I think it's fairly safe to say that the game is in a working and enjoyable state. I also think it's fairly safe to say that it isn't anything to do with the content of the cases either. You know, at the end of the day, if you've got an issue with selling cosmetic items in these RNG loot crates, then well, you've really got to start taking an issue to all games out there that do that. That includes popular titles like CSGO and Overwatch. So if you've got an issue with it in PUBG, then you better have an issue with it in Overwatch and CSGO as well, otherwise you'd be a bit of a hypocrite. However, I think the main issue that many people are taking right now with these Gamescom Invitational cases is that Battlegrounds is still in an early access state. If you go to the Battlegrounds store page, you will see that it still has the early access banner attached to it, meaning that the game is still technically very much in development and is not a fully fledged, flesh-out title. People see the early access tag and then they see the microtransactions tag and they start to wonder, hang on, should the developers really be focused on, you know, actually making the game better, you know, giving it more features, giving it more weapons, you know, optimizing it so that it's playable for a lot more players? Because I know that one of the major complaints of Battlegrounds right now is optimization, and it always has been ever since the game came out. So why are the developers focusing on these literally more cosmetic issues than the ones that are at the core of the game, like the optimization, like the features and all that jazz? Well, what you got to remember, guys, is that in a development team there are multiple departments, and in those departments you've got people that can do things and can't do things. At the end of the day, a game development team works like any other team in any other workforce. There are people who can do certain things, and there are people who can't do certain things. You can't have an entire development team working simply on optimization, because quite simply, not everyone in a development team knows how to optimize a game. Very much how, like, not everyone in a development team knows how to model, texture, animate, and rig pieces of clothing to a player. If the developers had decided to release these Gamescom cases later down the track after the game came out of early access, I honestly don't think we would have seen any fuss from the community whatsoever. But because you combine early access with microtransactions, a fuss obviously brewed up. Now, of course, there's going to be those fair few people that say, well, no, microtransactions should have never found their way into the game. This is an indie game at the end of the day that is still costs $40. Why are we paying even more to get all of the content out of this game? Well, something that we've got to remember, guys, is that there is right now a trend taking over the gaming industry, if you will. The trend of microtransactions becoming the primary form of funding a game for the long term over paid DLC expansion packs, or in other words, season passes. As the gaming industry became increasingly reliant on season passes to fund their games for the long term, the gaming community, as a result, became increasingly frustrated with the concept of essentially pre-ordering DLC to get access to what would essentially be the full experience for the game. The lead up towards the release of Star Wars Battlefront 1 from EA, I think, was the tipping point for the gaming community and their frustration with season passes. As we all know, the lead up towards Battlefront 1 was rocky. There was a lot of bad news in regards to the content or the amount of content that we'd be getting at launch for the game, and when the season pass got announced before the game had even released, the community blew up. And the resulting impact of the season pass is that the community was quickly fragmented, thus leading to a very short lifespan for the game. But now, let's shift our attention to a game that essentially gave the season pass the big middle finger, Titanfall 2. The developers at Titanfall 2 announced before the game release that all game-changing content that was coming out after the release date would be free to all players. This included all weapons, titans, and all game modes and maps. But in compensation to that, the developers said that they would be offering microtransactions for cosmetic items in the game to ensure that they could at least fund it for the long term, which has actually led the game to have a much longer lifetime despite it not having the biggest initial population of people playing it. As we all know, Titanfall 2 was completely gypped by the release date set by EA. It was set right in between the two AAA FPS Goliaths, Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Titanfall 2, as a result, was hurting on its initial release when it came to actual player counts. However, the player count of Titanfall 2 has actually remained to be quite consistent despite it not being very popular, simply because people can come and go from it as they please, trying out the brand new content and not having to invest any extra money for a fairly small gain. At the end of the day, the idea of not selling people game-changing content and leaving it up to them to purchase cosmetics that they wish to at their own pace ensures that the game can be a commercial success for the long term, all the while still providing players with free, fresh, enjoyable content. But how in God's name does this all relate back to Battlegrounds, I hear you all saying? Well guys, what we've got to keep in mind is that while the guys at Battlegrounds are selling us these microtransactions, we can hopefully guarantee that any game-changing content like maps, weapons, or game modes, if they decide to do anything of the sort, will not be sold to us in any form of DLC. We're getting a new map for Battlegrounds. We've just gotten first-person only servers. The developers, if they decided to not include microtransactions, could have very well gotten away with charging extra for these game modes, but because they're relying on microtransactions, we, the community, get access to the meaningful content for free, and we can invest a little bit more into the game to look cooler through cosmetics if we so choose to do so. It's all about compromise, guys, and at the end of the day, this kind of compromise puts the gamers in first, and that's something we've got to remember. Anyway guys, on that note, that's going to wrap up today's video discussing the PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds Gamescom Cases and the lashback that the community sort of gave the developers for their introduction so early into the game. Yes, it was probably a little bit too early to start incorporating microtransactions into the game, but at the end of the day, it's better than what the alternative could have been. If you guys enjoyed today's video, then a backhanding of that like button would be greatly appreciated, and if you find yourself backhanding that like button and say you're new to the channel, why don't you backhand that subscribe button whilst you're at it to keep up to date with the content which I'm releasing here. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below, guys, discussing the topic of today's video. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Once again, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I'll be seeing you all next time. Have a good one.